Okay, I mentioned in my last video, maybe painting one of my other cats who passed away. This cat was one of my first ever cats that I bonded to. Her name was Annabelle. As I said before, she was a ragdoll cat, was meant to be born a show cat, but was sold to us when her breeder didn't think her eye color was blue enough. But she was such a pretty cat. I don't think the breeder knew what she was talking about. Her eyes were actually a really pretty blue, but more of a sky blue than I think the deeper one that the breeder was looking for. It's funny, I hear people say that we as humans really personify our pets and assign them human traits and emotions. And I think me painting these guys as people feels like the ultimate way to do that. The animals in my life have always been my best companions. I've always found them so much more easy and less stressful to interact with than other people. Something I think many people can relate to. And while I said Faust and it seemed like a girly cat, this one definitely felt like a princess. But I already did a pink dress for Faust with the blue background, so I decided to swap the color scheme here and make a pink background with blue clothing. And I think that works out because it reflects the memory and story of her breeder and her eye color. I also gave her a snaggle tooth. She used to have a tooth that stuck out past her lips. I always thought it looked super cute, but eventually it gave her some problems eating, so she got it surgically removed when I was pretty young, and I remember it because the designated spot for her to recover and come off of the anesthesia was in my room, and I remember feeling special and kind of honored that my parents and the cat felt like that room would be the nicest, calmest, safest place for her, probably because I would always shut the door and hibernate in there. I've always treated my room as a little isolated safe space, so I usually wouldn't allow other people and animals in there, especially the dog, but I didn't mind the cats as much because they were quiet and did their own thing. I've always felt more of a preference for cats compared to dogs. I do like dogs, but I see more of myself in cats. Her not being able to eat with that tooth reminds me of my next memory associated with her, and that was my mom yelling, "Annabelle, Winston, dinner!" It was the magic words to summon them, since it meant we got them the fancy wet cat food, and they would bolt from one end of the house to the other to beat the other cat and be the first one there. We always used to call Annabelle a fatty McPatty. She wasn't actually that fat. She was like 50% just fluff, since ragdolls are long-haired cats. I've never had another long-haired cat since these pure breeds, and honestly, that's one thing I don't really miss about Winston and Annabelle, was their shedding. It was crazy, since Winston was a tan Persian and Annabelle a white ragdoll. They had very visible clumps of hair everywhere. I've also have never had cats who hurled as many hairballs as those two. It probably could have been resolved with some extra brushing, but I was a dumb kid at the time and didn't know that. Annabelle also had these light brown spots of coloration on her otherwise white coat, and I swear half of the ragdolls in any other photos I've seen have similar colored spots in nearly the same places as our ragdoll, so it really does make me see her in any other ragdoll I see. I didn't actually give her a dress here, but rather a blue coat with a fur trim. I think it gives her the vibe of being a more fancy, mature, older woman, since she would eventually be the oldest cat we ever owned. She lived to around 17, which made it extra hard when Foss died so early. She was only 6 or 7 when she passed. It felt like way less of a fulfilled life, and they always bothered me for a while. But at least we made that short life a pretty decent one. It wasn't until Faust and these 2 current cats I have that I've ever had a cat that likes their butt patted. Faust and now Rue love it, but Annabelle would just yell at you loudly for trying, so I didn't usually try with her. She was very particular about where she wanted to be pet, strictly on her back and head. She did love a good chin scratch, though. I found that the case with nearly every other cat I've owned or come across. It's funny, though. This cat would swat at you for even touching her belly, but one of our current cats, Rue, and to a lesser extent Faust, would literally flop on their back to let you rub their bellies. And while Faust just tolerated it, Rue absolutely loves it and will literally knead the air making little air biscuits while I do it. And sometimes I wonder if it was because she was apparently a mama cat at one point, or that's what the rescue we got her from said. Her original name was Butterfly, and her kittens were named things like Caterpillar or Pupa. They were all adopted out before we got her, which I think was super cute naming-wise. The rescue seemed happy to finally see her get her own home, and honestly, I think she was basically a kitten who had kittens. She seemed so young and tiny when we first got her. It was such a shock to hear she had kittens. It's pretty cool seeing her finally live a normal cat life without any stress or sickness anymore, because again, she was a very sickly little struggling cat when we first got her. I started talking about a completely different cat there, but I can't help myself, and I do notice myself comparing the little differences in their personalities and preference between my different cats. Like for Sunny, he has an interesting quirk of going up to my bathroom sink and just waiting until either I come over there and pat his butt or turn the sink on for him. I've never had a cat so obsessed with water. He still is a cat and doesn't like actually touching water, but will excitedly meow at you if he thinks you're filling up water for him, even if he already has a full thing of water. I guess he just likes the fresh water. We even bought him a little fountain that runs nearly all day, every day, and he still wants me to turn on the sink for him. And there'll be times where I'm trying to just do art, and he's just not having any of it and just cries. And if I don't respond, he starts yowling and screaming. A few times he's gotten stuck in rooms before, and it takes me multiple times of yelling at him to realize the meowing isn't coming from the bathroom, but that's kind of what he gets for always crying wolf. I probably won't paint my 2 current cats we have, because this is a way for me to memorialize and immortalize and preserve the memories of the cats that have already passed away. I'm still making memories with these 2 guys. Sometimes, though, I am reminded of memories of the old ones. Like just recently, a few weeks ago, I was scraping fur off of the cat tower we have. We've had it since Annabelle, and while cleaning, in the very back of it where I hadn't bothered to check for a while, I found a big old clump of white fur all the way back from Annabelle. I remember bagging it with the hope of someday maybe adding it to a needle felt. How special would that be to have a little figure of this cat made from some of her actual fur? I did that with Faust when she died, but that was after Annabelle, so I never thought to grab any fur from her for that. I started needle felting all the way back in high school, but wasn't good at it. I mostly just pricked my fingers and made myself bleed. And needle felting needles are barbed, so I swear it hurt extra bad, but the barbs are how they tangle all that wool or fur together to create little figures. It's kind of hard to explain. I've never stabbed myself with a sewing needle, so I can't confirm if it actually hurts more. I'm usually pretty careful with sewing needles, but I wildly and quickly stab when I needle felt, and sometimes I slip and hit my fingers. But I've since gotten work gloves, and provided I actually remember to put them on, I poke myself way less. But yeah, I didn't start needle felting in my adult life until seeing someone do commissions for people's pets online and adding their fur, and I decided it was a good way to honor Faust as well as getting her a gravestone and the fairy lights that I put outside of her favorite window, where she would always watch the birds, so that maybe in spirit she still could watch them. I don't know if I believe in spirits hanging around, but if she did, I like to think she'd be happy with where I put it. And those 2 things really helped me feel like I was doing something with my grief, other than just stewing in it and making it even worse. But yeah, I got a little sidetracked there with all my other cats, but this painting of Annabelle is almost finished. I'm going to put it right next to Faust's. And since they are both slightly too big of canvases, they may make each other look normal by comparison.